Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melissa and I'm the owner of seasonedserveblog.com. But today I'm not totally Melissa, I am a rebooted teenage witch, here to show you how to make a delicious salted caramel apple galette. The salted caramel apple galette recipe is super easy and you can either make everything from scratch or you can take some shortcuts by buying some pre-made store-bought ingredients like your pie dough and your caramel. But today I'm going to show you how to make the majority of this recipe from scratch, and I may have a little bit of help from my friend Salem. So to start off this recipe, we are going to begin by making our pie dough, and I have some all-purpose flour in this bowl along with some sugar and salt, and I'm just going to mix all of these dried ingredients together. Now, I'm showing it in real time for you mortals because I know you don't have powers like I do, so you will know how to make it. And once all your dry ingredients are combined together, I'm going to add in our cold butter, and when I do my butter, I put it in large rectangles like this and add it into the flour. And then this way, I'm more easily able to grab a piece of butter and sort of smush it out so it's flat. And that'll give you really nice distribution of butter in your pie dough. And then you will have a really nice flaky pie crust, which is what we want for our galette. So if you've never had a galette before, it is basically like an easier pie to make. Rather than having a top crust and a bottom crust for your pie, you just have one big sheet of dough. You put all your fillings in the center and then you wrap the edges of the dough around it. So it looks really pretty and it's much easier to make than a traditional pie. So now that all the butter is mixed into the dough and we have a nice grainy mixture like this, we are going to add in some lemon juice. This will help keep the pie dough really nice and soft and tender. And we're also going to add in some ice cold water, and this will help bring all the dough together. So we're just going to add that in and mix it up, and you'll see the dough start coming together. Okay, and once your dough starts to come together like this, you just want to tip it out on your work surface and then knead the dough really lightly. So I'm just going to pop this down like this, and then we're going to knead the dough until it comes together. Now I have magical powers and I'm going to have this done in 3, 2, 1. Just like that, our pie dough has come together. It has formed a nice ball and all of the ingredients are distributed properly. So all we're going to do now is wrap this up in plastic wrap, put it in the refrigerator to chill for 30 minutes, and in the meantime, we'll get on to preparing our apple filling. So next up, we're going to prepare our apple filling, and I am using some Spartan apples in today's recipe because they are local and they are very tasty. So you can use Spartan. I also recommend Honeycrisp or Granny Smith or even Jonah Goat apples. They're really good baking apples and they also taste delicious. So now I'm already tired of doing this mortal chore of peeling apples, so I'm going to use my witch powers to peel all these apples just like that. All of our apples are peeled and sliced. They are sliced into 1 centimeter thick pieces. And now we're going to add a couple extra ingredients to them to add more flavor to the apples. So we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a tablespoon of brown sugar. And this isn't a lot, but we are going to add some caramel to this. So this is plenty of sweetness that is going into the apples at the moment. So we're going to give this a little mix through. Just like this, just to get everything distributed. And caramel apples are one of my favorite treats, and I know witches and mortals enjoy them a lot, so I thought this would be a really great recipe to make. It's simply like having a caramel apple but in a pie, and it is so good. So I hope all you witches and mortals out there enjoy this recipe. Now that everything is distributed, we're going to go over to the stove and cook our apples. Now we're over at the stove and we're going to start cooking our apples. And to begin, we're going to add some butter to the pan. This is 1 tablespoon of butter, and we're just going to let that melt. And once our butter is melted, we are going to add in the apples. We're just going to dump them right in like that and give them a little bit of a stir. So for this recipe, I like to partially cook my apples before putting them in the galette so that after the galette bakes, the apples are cooked perfectly. So we're going to cook this over medium heat for about 5 minutes or until the apples start to begin getting soft. So after about 5 minutes of cooking, your apples will start to get nice and soft and they'll start releasing some of their juices. And at this point, we're going to transfer this into our bowl and then we're going to pop it in the fridge to cool, just so that when we add it onto the pie dough, it doesn't melt the pie dough and the butter in the dough and cause it to bake all weird. So we're going to chill this in the fridge, and while that's chilling, we're going to work on rolling out our pie dough. This is my baby Salem. They're watching me make my apple galette. Salted. Salem, what are you doing? You doing good, Salem? You watch me make my food? You watch me make my salted caramel apple galette? Yeah. Okay, now that our pie dough has chilled, we are gonna roll it out, and we're gonna roll it out into one large piece. So I'm gonna take my all-purpose flour and flour both sides of it, and also my work surface. I like to use a silicone baking mat so nothing sticks to the counter and my aunties don't have to clean up the counter after me. So we're gonna roll this out using a rolling pin, and we're gonna try and keep it in a round shape just so that we can get that perfect round galette. Now our pie dough is all rolled out, and I rolled it out relatively thin. It's about 2 to 3 millimeters thick, and I think that's the perfect thickness for making a galette. Now, before we add our filling on, we want to actually transfer it to our baking sheet. And the best way to do that is to roll the pie dough up on the rolling pin. We'll roll it up just like that. We're going to bring the parchment lined baking sheet over here. Then we'll pick it up and roll that down just like that. Now this way we can just pop the filling directly onto the pie dough, fold up the edges and bake it. It's a lot easier doing it this way than if you don't put this on the pan first. So make sure you always do that trick. So before we put our apples on, we are actually going to put on some caramel, and I like to do it on the base of the galette because if you do it sort of in the apples, I find that it tends to kind of burn. So we are going to protect the caramel by putting it on the base of the galette. So I made this caramel homemade from scratch, but if you want to take a shortcut, you can also just buy store-bought caramel or just buy the little caramel cubes and melt those down over the stove. But I'll have the recipe for this homemade caramel on my blog, or on Melissa's blog, I should say. This is a fairly sticky caramel, so I'm just going to use a silicone spatula to kind of just spread it out into a star or a morning star shape. After me. You don't have to make this star very big because as this cooks in the oven, it is going to melt, so it'll kind of go all over the base, which is totally fine. So now that we have a caramel down, we are going to add on our apples that have been cooled. So these are going to go right on the caramel in a nice big pile. And we're going to spread it out a little bit, and I want to make sure it mounds up a little bit in the center, just like that. A little bit flatter on the edges and taller in the middle. Now to seal up the galette, I'm going to use an egg wash, and this is just a beaten egg with some milk in it. You can do egg and water, egg and cream, whatever you have on hand. And I'm just going to lightly brush the perimeter of this galette with the egg wash just to make sure everything seals properly. So once you have a nice ring around the apples, we are just going to fold up the galette. And I'm making sure to keep a little circle in the middle just so that you can see all this beautiful apple filling. And we gotta make it a hexagon shape because 6 is our lucky number as witches. And that is the galette. It is looking super beautiful, but to make sure that this crust gets all nice and golden brown, we're also gonna brush our egg wash on the edges of the galette. So make sure you get it nice and coated. And then when it bakes in the oven, the egg will kind of caramelize and turn a beautiful golden brown color. Just like that. And then to add a little bit more flavor and that salted part of the salted caramel, I'm gonna add some flaky sea salt on the edges of the galette along with some sugar. So I'm actually gonna put the sugar down first. This will give a nice little bite and nice crunch to the galette. And the galette I think is really nice. If you like crust in pie, the galette is a really nice way to make sure you get lots of delicious crust. So we're gonna do about a teaspoon of granulated white sugar, and then we're also gonna add these beautiful sea salt flakes, just like that. And it'll all stick to the egg wash that we just put on the crust. And I think the salt just adds another layer of flavor and a nice bite really cuts through a lot of the sweetness of the apples. Okay, so now our galette is all ready to bake. So this is gonna go in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes. And I'm gonna put it on convection just so that I get a nice even color on the galette. But if you don't have convection, just make sure that halfway through cooking, you just rotate the pan in the oven and then the galette will brown evenly. So into the oven it goes. And after the galette is all cooked, it'll look something like this, all beautifully golden brown, and all the apples have softened up and have become super delicious. Now for final garnish, we are gonna add on a drizzle of extra caramel. And I think this just really puts it over the top and makes it extra special for Halloween or any sort of spooky fall festivity. So we're just gonna do a nice little caramel drizzle. And I wanna go pretty light on the drizzle. And if people want extra, they can obviously add some more to their own slice. There, I think that is perfect. All right, so you can let this cool a little bit more, or you can just serve it warm like this with all the warm caramel on top, which is what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna slice into this and I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. Oh, and you can hear the flaky crust already. So gorgeous. Okay, lift this slice out. And look at how gorgeous that is. The layer of dough on the bottom with all the apples and caramel. Oh, so amazing. All right, and there you have it, my beautiful salted caramel apple galette, all beautifully delicious, crispy, with nice soft caramel apples. This is the perfect treat for Halloween. Now I'm gonna take a little bite and we're gonna see what this tastes like. Oh yeah. That is perfect. Nice. Oh, Salem, you're here. You want some too? Let me get Salem and I'll show Salem to you guys. And that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you hit the like button down below as well as the red subscribe button so Salem knows that you enjoyed the video and the recipe. And of course, you can find the full recipe on my blog, which is linked in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching and happy Halloween! Right, Salem? Say happy Halloween! Happy Halloween! Okay.